We recently had a couple of our friends stop by for a visit. We have known Bob and Maria for most of our married life. Maria used to work with my wife Trina at a large, well-known travel agency. The company has offices in many states. Bob is a supervisor in a factory. I am an electrician and work at one of the local factories. I have been working there since I returned from the service about 8 years ago. The four of us were watching an old movie called Same Time Next Year, which was about a man and a woman who had been lovers for many years. They were both married, but not to each other. They still loved each other and agreed to meet and be lovers every year at about the same time for a week. The rest of the time, they would live normal lives with their spouses and families. Our wives cried at the end of one of the novels when the couple had to go home to their families. "What nonsense," I said. "They're both cheating on their families and you both think it's so sad." "They should be found in the arms of their lovers and shot," was my reply. "Andy, how can you say that?" "They were true lovers and only met once a year?" Maria replied. I spoke up. "So what you two are saying is that I can have sex with my ex-girlfriend once a year as long as Trina doesn't find out about it." Trina was furious. "You bastard, this isn't about you and your old whore Melissa. This is about people who are really in love. I doubt you'll ever be able to understand that." Bob could see the tension was getting out of control. "Time out. It's just a damn movie. I don't think we should all sit here and argue over a stupid movie." "Bob," I asked, "if this woman was your wife, would you say it's okay to have an affair once a year?" "If I caught Trina doing that, I'd throw her out on her ass. And Trina, you had no right to bring Melissa into this just because she was my girlfriend before I met you. Hell, I didn't say anything about you and your old lover, Zach. Look, this is getting out of hand." "Let's just stop talking about the movie," Maria said. "No," I said. "I want to know Bob's answer. What would you do, Bob, if Maria wanted to do what the woman in the movie did?" "Look, Andy, Maria wouldn't do that. I'm not going to answer questions based on some damn assumptions. Maria is too good a person to do that to our marriage," Bob replied. I glanced casually at the girls, and for a moment something flashed between them. I couldn't tell what it was, but a chill ran down my spine. Maria got up, sat on her husband's lap, and kissed him. I guess in their happy heads all was well and fine. As for Trina, she didn't smile at me. She stood up and offered everyone another drink. I turned off the movie and the four of us went into the kitchen to play cards. Men have always been against women. I have to admit that the cold made me think. In the days that followed, I did a lot of thinking. When I graduated from high school, I enlisted in the Army. I signed up for 3 years, 2 of them overseas. I went to prom with my girlfriend Melissa. I really believed I loved her. She was my first love and the first woman I ever made love to. I always thought we were a great couple and would be together forever. I guess I was just too naive at the time. The last time we made love was a week before I had to leave for duty. She never saw me off because she had to go to another ball. Her parents told her that she could go to the prom with me as long as she went to another prom, or rather a dance with Eric. He was the kind of guy who liked weirdos and was in college. There was some kind of celebration going on, and Eric asked Melissa to go to it with him. Melissa made the mistake of mentioning it to her mother. Don't get me wrong, I had nothing against Eric except that he wanted to date my girlfriend. Unfortunately, his mother and Melissa's mother worked together and tried to get them both to start dating. It pained me to know that Melissa would date Eric, but she said her mom told her she had to go, but she promised me she wouldn't even kiss him. I had been abroad for about 4 months when I received a letter from my sister informing me that Melissa was pregnant. I couldn't believe it. Melissa had been writing to me since I left for basic training. Why had she never told me about it? Surely she must have known, especially if my sister Jen knew. The only answer was that Eric had gotten her pregnant. I was furious. I wrote her a letter calling her every dirty word I could think of. I was fighting in a war, and my soon-to-be ex-girlfriend was having fun at home behind my back and didn't even deign to tell me she was pregnant. After that letter, I never wrote to her again. I told her not to waste her time writing to me because it was over between us, and I would throw her letters in the trash without even reading them. I told her that I hoped she, her illegitimate child, and Eric would have a good life together. I received a letter from her but tore it up and threw it in the trash. I never heard from her again while I was overseas. My sister told me that Mel and Eric had gotten married shortly before the baby was born. They lived in Eric's parents' house, and Eric was taking night classes at college to get a college degree. When I found out I was pregnant, I became a hero. I wasn't brave, I was stupid. I didn't care if I got killed or not. I was there as a superhero, saving the lives of many homeless children running around. I didn't care about myself anymore. I thought I was going to come home in a body bag. I didn't care. I was just a stupid soldier who decided his life was over. I couldn't believe it when my tour of duty was over. Not only was I alive, but I received several commendations for bravery. When I returned home, the town threw a party in my honor. I saw many friends and old schoolmates. They all greeted me with handshakes and smiles. I wondered if one woman would show up at the celebration. I saw her in the crowd with a baby stroller and her husband. She turned around and walked away without even talking to me. I wasn't expecting this because of the letter I wrote calling her a slut and a bitch. It's funny how our emotions take over when we get angry. I was sad after meeting her, but I still hated what she did to us. There was a lot of dancing at the party. I saw an old classmate sitting there and asked her to dance. It was Trina, one of the prettiest girls in our class. She was a little out of my league at the time and was dating an athlete from high school. He was every woman's dream. At least that's what the school rumors said. His name was Zach Carter. He was the quarterback of the entire school and was probably excelling. I heard he went off to college after high school. Trina went to a local junior college, earned a business degree, and worked for a large travel agency. Last I heard, Zach was living in another state. I guess he broke up with Trina, dated some woman who had money and married her. As we danced, we both talked about old times. We soon realized that we had both been dumped by previous lovers, and after getting along quite well, we started dating. I must say that we were both on the upswing in our love lives. After living together for 6 months, we got married. I know it was stupid, but when things are blamed on people, they tend to behave differently. I got a job at one of the local factories and went to apprentice as an electrician. Trina and I actually get along quite well. I think we found that we respected each other and enjoyed many of the same things. I could tell we loved each other, and in a way we did. The sex we had was great. She wasn't afraid to try almost anything. It bothered me a little where she learned many of these things. One day I asked her and she laughed and pulled out a stack of women's magazines that listed many of the things we had tried. Our real feelings were more like love, but it was a better relationship than many people we knew. Life was pleasant, and we went out with all kinds of friends. One day, when we were walking with Bob and Maria, Trina asked me if I wanted to go to a conference that her travel agency was organizing. Andy, every 2 years our travel agency holds a convention in a different state where we have offices. Last time it was here in Ohio, and this time it was in Florida. It's usually the first or second week of May. They let us bring our spouses with us, even though it's nothing more than a meeting, and they show us the latest tourist destinations and things like that. Would you like to go? Asked Trina. Honey, I don't want to use a week's vacation in May to go to meetings. Can any of the other employees in your office go with you? I'll go, Maria said. Bob can't go and he won't want to. Usually Trina, Barb, another girl from the office, and I go together. Sounds good to me. It'll give me a week to get excited for you until you get back, I replied. Trina smiled, and she and Maria went to the women's restroom. I never understood why women couldn't go to the restroom alone. When they left, Bob and I were talking about how lucky we were not to have to go to such a boring seminar. When Trina came back from the seminar, we made love, had sex. Call it what you will. It was some of the best sex we'd had since we'd gotten married. Anyway, Trina got pregnant. I was a happy father. My baby girl was born just in time for Valentine's Day. I couldn't have imagined a better Valentine's Day gift. We were a family now, and everything seemed to have changed for the better. After the baby was born, Trina took 3 months off. My sister Jen offered to babysit, and everything worked out just fine. Baby Renee was my pride and joy. After work, I loved nothing more than cuddling my baby girl and watching her play. The only thing that disturbed my little world was Trina and I fighting. For some reason, she was always throwing Melissa at me. Of course, I threw Zach back at her. It was really stupid to fight over 2 people who were no longer a part of our lives. But when we're angry, we have a tendency to bring up the past. One day when I got home before Trina did, I asked Jen if she had ever seen Melissa. Every now and then I see her at the grocery store. She has the cutest little girl she named Andrea. I know you don't want me to talk about her, but she loves her daughter even though she doesn't seem happy. I don't know why, Jen said. Well, next time you see her, tell her I have a daughter too. That's rude, Andy. I'm not saying anything like that. Trina walked in a few minutes later, and we realized we'd better change the subject. For some reason, I couldn't just forget about Melissa. Maybe because deep down, I still cared for her. Maybe because she was my first love. I wonder if other people have similar feelings about their first love. Do we ever relive them? Was Trina able to get over Zach? When it comes to first love, there's always something to think about. Time flew by, and it was time for Trina to leave for another seminar. I really didn't want to go, and neither did Bob. Besides, I had a little 2-year-old daughter to take care of. At least that's how I explained it to Trina. She and Maria went out with her other girlfriend. When she got home, we had great sex again. I thought about telling her to go more often. Every time she came home, the sex was always the best. Again, about 2 months later, she found out she was pregnant. 7 months later, our second daughter was born. We named her Ashley. Valentine's Day was starting to become a pretty good day in our house. Life went on. We lived ordinary lives and fought. The funny thing is, the longer we were married, the less we had in common. I often wondered if we would have divorced if it weren't for my 2 sweet daughters, Renee and Ashley. I finally got my electrician's license. It meant more time to work, but also more money. I used to spend my free time with the girls. I realized that soon they would grow up. I wanted to spend as much time with them as possible. Trina and I got along, but it wasn't like love. I know I keep saying this, but I felt like we were just doing our chores. It seemed like most of my friends had similar marriages. We all looked alike from the outside, but behind closed doors we were like 2 strangers living in the same house. I tried to joke and banter with Trina a few times, but it usually ended in some sort of argument. When she was planning her next workshop, I told her I would go with her. I thought it would strengthen our marriage if I took more interest in her work. At first she seemed excited that I was going, but after a couple days she calmed down a bit. A few days after that, Bob called me and asked if I wanted to go to Canada and fish with him while the girls were at the seminar. I tried to explain to him that I had told Trina that I would go with her. Believe me, Bob, I'd rather fish than go to a travel seminar. Just tell Trina. I'm sure she'll understand. I've already got the cabin booked, or I'd change the date. I go fishing every time Maria goes to a seminar. This year, one of the guys couldn't make it and we had a vacancy. Maria was the one who suggested I contact you. Please at least mention it to Trina, Bob replied. I was sitting on the floor playing with the girls when Trina came home. The first thing she did was talk about the fishing trip. I think Maria had mentioned it. Andy, she said, I know about the fishing trip to Canada. I think you should go. Really, Trina? I promised you I'd go to the seminar with you. Look, Andy, this is the first vacation you've had since you finished your course and became an electrician. You've earned it, and I'm not going to take it away from you and make you sit through a bunch of meetings. Call Bob and tell him to make room for you in the car. She smiled at me. I couldn't believe how sweet she was. I told her I would get back to our usual sexcapade when she got back from her trip. I quickly got up and called Bob. Trina screwed me that night too. Maybe she's changed. The fishing was great. It was just what I needed to get away and relax for the best part of the week. My sister watched the kids while we were both away. I asked her to keep them an extra night so Trina and I could indulge in some sexual pleasure. Jen just laughed and said she would see me the next day. I had Trina lying on the bed and making love to her, well, more like rough sex, minutes after she walked in the door. I remember telling her that we were going to try to conceive a boy that night. I don't remember how many times we did it that night, but it led to our 3rd pregnancy. Andrew Jr. was born the following February. All 3 of our children were born within 1 day of each other in February. Right after Andy Jr. was born, I had a vasectomy. I decided we had 2 daughters and a son and told Trina that 3 kids was enough and I wasn't going to use condoms. She didn't seem happy or upset. Of course, why would she be happy? Surely she thought 3 kids were enough too. About a year after Andy was born, Jen told me that Melissa wanted to talk to me privately. What about Jen? What could she possibly want after all these years? I don't know. She filed for divorce from Eric, but I don't know if that's it or not. She seems scared. I think she needs to talk to you. You realize Trina will get really mad if I talk to Melissa? She's never really liked her. I probably elevated her too much years ago. I know I'd be pissed if I found Trina talking to Zach. Hell, I don't even know where he lives. Look, Andy, the last thing I want to do is interfere with your marriage. Maybe you can call her from my house or even meet her there once. We don't talk about sex, just talk. I've always liked her, and I know she wouldn't ask you to talk unless it was really important. The next day, I went to Melissa's house at Jen's house. I felt like I was doing something wrong just by going there. One part of me kept telling me to go home, and the other part of me wanted to see Mel again. Now I was struggling with my thoughts on whether I was doing the right thing. I stopped in front of Jen's house and sat there for a minute, trying to gather my thoughts and wondering what I should say. I felt like a nervous child as I got out of the car and walked to the door. I rang the doorbell. Any other time I would have walked right in, but today was different. Jen came to the door and asked why I rang the doorbell. I didn't have an answer when I walked in. The tension could have been cut with a knife when I looked up and saw Melissa, as beautiful as I remembered her, standing in Jen's kitchen. She cried and brought her hands to her face. I was at a loss as to what to do. There was no way I expected to see her crying. I walked over to her and held her hands, seeing the tears streaming down her face. She spoke first. "I'm so sorry, Andy, I'm so sorry," she said over and over. She was shaking, and I put my arms around her to comfort her. I had no idea why she was acting like this, but it was getting to me. 10 years ago, I would have been happy to see her tears after what she'd done to me, but it was different now. Perhaps time helps heal old wounds. I held her in my arms and smelled the Melissa I remembered. "It's okay, Mel, that was 10 years ago. We're both moving on with our lives," I said. "No, you don't understand. I promised Eric that I would never see you again. That was our pact, but I had to break it. I had to break it for Andrea, my little girl," Mel replied. "You're right, Mel, I don't understand. What are you trying to tell me?" Mel calmed down a little, and Jen brought her a cup of tea. The three of us were sitting at the table when Jen suggested we go into the other room and leave Mel and me alone. "No, please stay, Jen. I think you need to hear this too. Andrea, my little girl, has a severe case of jaundice due to liver failure. She's going to have a liver transplant if a suitable donor can be found. The doctor said that family members are best and that only part of the liver needs to be given to adults. In time, it will grow back. My problem is that I am not a match and we have no other suitable family members." "What about Eric?" Jen asked. "Has he been tested?" "What about his family members?" Mel looked at me and said, "Eric is not Andrea's father. It's you, Andy." She started crying again. I was overwhelmed. I had so many questions, and I didn't know where to start. "What?" I asked. "Why didn't you ever tell me she was my baby?" "My God, Mel, I can't believe you could hide something like that. When you found out I was pregnant, you didn't give me a chance to explain. You texted me and called me a bitch and a whore, among other things. You told me you didn't want to see me anymore. I wrote you a letter explaining everything anyway, but you never wrote me back. Oh my God, I was furious when I got that letter and threw it away. I can't believe I was so stupid. I've been mad at you all these years. Why did you marry Eric? Does he know Andrea might not be his child?" Mel smiled slightly. "You're so crazy. That's one of the things I've always liked about you. Of course, Eric knew Andrea wasn't his child. We never had sex until we were married. I told him you were the father, and you wanted nothing more to do with me. That's what you told me. Eric really cared about me. He really is a wonderful man, but he also has pride. He agreed to marry me on the condition that I tell everyone that he is the father of my child. Honestly, I didn't know what else to do. You didn't want anything more to do with me, and I was an 18-year-old girl. Eric and I got married, but I had to promise to never see you again and let everyone know that Eric was Andrea's father. I still love you, and Eric knew that. He's a good man, and we got along fine until Andrea was diagnosed with liver problems a couple months ago. You're her last hope. I had to choose whether or not to tell you. Of course, Eric said that if I told you Andrea was your child, we couldn't stay married anymore because his family and friends would find out the truth. But I had no choice. My child's life is at stake, and she comes first in my life. Will you take the test to see if you can be a donor?" Tears of hope stood in her eyes. This was no small decision. My marriage was probably on the line too. I don't know how Trina will react. I'm giving part of my liver to Mel's baby. I knew I had to do the right thing, no matter the circumstances or the outcome. "Mel, of course I'll take the test to save Andrea's life. Tell the doctor to make an appointment for me and I'll be there." All three of us had tears in our eyes. Mel came over to me and hugged me. She whispered in my ear, "I love you so much, always have and always will." Mel immediately picked up the phone and called the hospital to schedule my checkup. I was scheduled for Monday. I figured that would give me a day or so to break the news to Trina. I guess I really was between a hammer and anvil. I believed Mel when she told me Andrea was my daughter. When I took the test, I would know for sure and she would gain nothing and lose a lot by lying to me. I hugged Jen and Mel and headed home very confused. Learning that Andrea was my daughter threw me into a state of confusion. I had a child who was 10 years old, and I had never even met her. The woman I'd always loved was back in my life. I had a wife who despised my ex-girlfriend, and I had 3 other children at home. If I hadn't been so young, I probably would have had a heart attack. I was playing with the kids when Trina came home. It was hard to tell what mood she was in because it changed so often. I decided to wait a little while before talking to her. I knew she was about to burst into tears and I didn't want the kids to see it happen. They had already seen their mother and me fighting too often. On Sunday, I took the kids to my mom's house. I told Trina I'd be back in a few minutes, that I had something to discuss with her. When I got back, she jumped on me. "What's so damn important we can't discuss in front of the kids?" Trina asked. "I talked to Melissa yesterday, and you and I have a lot to discuss." Trina interrupted me. "What? You went and saw her. Why? She's missing her home and she wanted you to help her?" "That's enough, Trina. This is very serious and I need to talk to you about it. Mel's daughter has jaundice and she needs a liver transplant or she's going to die. What does this have to do with us? I feel sorry for the girl, but there's nothing we can do. Why would she want to tell you about this?" Trina looked a little more concerned, but I knew she was wondering why Mel had called me. Mel said the girl needs part of an adult's liver to survive, and the closest chances of a match are with family members. "Don't tell me she claims you're the baby's father. Do you believe her?" "Yeah, she called to tell me I'm the father of a little girl." "Honestly, Trina, I didn't realize. The little girl needs a transplant, and I'm going to see if I can help her. I have an appointment tomorrow to see if I'm a good fit." "What about our family? Have you thought about them? What if something goes wrong or that you need time to recover? Have you thought about us?" Trina looked more angry than concerned. She had a right to be angry. It was just dumped on us, but the fact remained that Andrea needed help to survive. Look, the realization that I can save a little girl's life and the fact that she could very well be my daughter leaves me no choice. I have to do it no matter what you say. "You bastard! You put your girlfriend and her daughter before your own family. You are a poor excuse for a man and a father. I'm going to pretend you said that out of anger. If our children needed a transplant, I would support them, and you know it. Tomorrow I'll know from the test results if Mel's girl is my daughter, and if she is, I'll do everything I can to save her. I will also be involved in her life whether you like it or not. I just hope you can stop your hate and try to understand. For your information, Andrew, I'm against it. You may love her, but she's not related to me, and I don't care what happens to her. I have children of my own to worry about, and if she survives, I don't want you bringing her into my house. You're just a nasty bitch. I can't believe what I saw in you. I'll help this girl if I can. We'll see what happens next." "Are you worried about the girl or her mother? You never got over her, did you? You're pathetic, Andrew, very pathetic. Go to your old girlfriend and give your liver to her daughter. Maybe she'll take you back after I kick your ass out. I'll be watching you and collecting evidence. You better watch your step." I picked up the kids and took them home. Trina came later and hardly spoke to me. I knew that life was going to be hell from here on out. I was checked in and asked to wait an hour while they ran tests. I went into Andrea's room. Mel was sitting there talking to her little girl. Andrea was so pretty. She looked a lot like her mother. She was 10 years old, but she was small because of liver problems. She looked no older than my daughter Renee, who was 6 years old. I walked over to the bed and it startled Mel a little. She quickly turned around and saw me. She had the most beautiful smile on her face. "Thank you for coming," she said. I looked at Andrea. "Are you my guardian angel?" she asked me. "Mom said my guardian angel would be here today to help me get what I need." "Are you him?" I smiled at her. "I'm not exactly an angel, but I'm here in hopes that I can give you what you need. I'll know in a few minutes." "You're Andy, aren't you? Mom said I was named after you. Did you know that? I have to tell you that Mom and I talk all the time. She and I have secrets. When I get better, I'll share them with you. Mom said it's okay. This disease may make me look young, but I'm 10 now, and I'm pretty smart. Do you have other children? The way she said it made me wonder. Did she know the truth about me? She was talking about the other kids, wasn't she? She sounded like she was so smart, but her body looked so fragile. God, I hope I'm perfect for her. Yes, honey, I have 3 children at home, all younger than you. When you get well, I'll bring them to you. That would be great. I like kids. I don't have any brothers or sisters to play with, so maybe I could borrow yours, she smiled. I could see it was weak and there were tubes coming out of it. Honey, close your eyes and rest for a while. You need to get your strength back. I'll keep Andy company, Mel said. I'm sure you will, Mommy, Andrea said, smiled, and dozed off. Does she really know who I am, Mel? How much does she really know? I asked. Mel smiled. That was so nice to see. Andrea and I have secrets, just like she told you. She'll tell you what they are when she's feeling better. Until then, you'll just have to guess. Mel walked me back to the lab. We were asked to wait in the doctor's office. He wanted to talk to us. Mr. Connors, you're a great match for Andrea. The perfect match would be a child, but we can take some of your liver and implant it in the girl. Doctor, she's my daughter. I know that now. I would like you to call her my daughter. The doctor smiled. Well, Mr. Connors, your daughter has a chance for a full recovery. It may take a couple months for her body to fully accept the implant, but she's young and should recover quickly. What about me, Doc? What am I going to go through? You will be put under anesthesia while we remove part of your liver. When you wake up, you will feel like you have just been run over by a truck. If all goes well, you'll need bed rest for a month, and you won't be able to return to work for at least 6 weeks. Over the next year, your body will recover on its own. You're not kidding, are you, Doc? No, you wanted to know the truth, and I believe I will tell it to you. Your daughter is very lucky to have you in her life. Frankly, I don't think she could have lived another month. Now for the bad news. Bad news? You mean you just told me good news? The doctor laughed. Yes, that was the good news. The bad news is that we need to operate as soon as possible. I was hoping you could come in tomorrow morning for surgery. Tomorrow! Doc, let's start on Wednesday. Tomorrow I will need to come into work and take sick leave. I need you to provide me with all the necessary paperwork, especially if I'm going to be away from work for a while. Agreed, Wednesday. I'll have my secretary give you the necessary paperwork. See you Wednesday, Mr. Connors. Just call me Andy, Doc. Looks like we'll be seeing a lot of each other. Mel clung to my hand as we walked back to Andrea's room. There were tears in her eyes, but they were tears of joy. I don't know what to say, Andy. You're putting your life on hold for a few months for my daughter. I'm doing this for my daughter, too. I can't live with myself if I don't help her. As for you and me, Mel, I don't know what's going to happen next. I'm married, and I would never cheat on my wife. I've always loved you too, but we each have our own lives now. No matter what happens, I want to stay friends with you, and I want Andrea to be a part of my life. I leaned over the bed and kissed little Andrea's forehead. Sleep well, my beautiful daughter. Daddy loves you. Tears came to my eyes as I left the hospital. After I was discharged from the hospital, I went into work to tell my boss what had happened. He said he was surprised. He didn't know any of my children had been sick. I didn't bother trying to explain it to him, but thanked him for helping me get my paperwork and insurance in order. He said my job would be right next to me when the doctor cleared me to come back. When I got home, Trina was waiting for me. So this is your baby? Yes, Andrea is my daughter. The surgery is on Wednesday. I've already taken care of the insurance and talked to work. I won't work for at least 6 weeks, but I'll be paid sick leave. So you're really going to go through with this? What about your kids? Are you going to tell them about your second child? Our children are 2, 4, and 6 years old. If I told them I could save another child's life, they would be smart enough to tell me I was doing the right thing. They know I'll always be there for them. I'll talk to them tonight so they know why they won't see me for a while. Jen said she will help you in any way she can until I get home. Oh yes, your wonderful sister Jen will be there. You know, she can be a pain in the... sometimes. Don't say that. Don't be so stupid as to speak ill of my sister. She's like a second mother to our kids, and you know it. If you don't need her help, Just call her and tell her what a pain in your ass she is. I'm sure she'll leave you alone." Trina fell silent and went into the other room. I called the two girls over to talk to them. Andy Jr. came in too, but he had no idea what we were talking about. I told the kids that they had an older sister from another mother and that she was very sick. I tried my best to explain to them what was going on. The girls were almost crying. "Save her, Daddy." "You have to help her if you can," Renee replied. "I will, sweetheart. I won't be home for a few days until I feel better. I'll call you and talk to you every day until I get home. When your sister is better, I'll take you to see her. Aunt Jen will help take care of you while I'm gone. I want you to be good for her and Mommy, okay?" "We'll be good, Daddy, we promise." On Wednesday, I went to the hospital. Before going into the room, I looked in on Andrea for a moment. She was nervous but smiling. "Hey, Andy, glad you could make it. I couldn't have done it without you." I think she had a little bit of me in her. She was a sweet, caring girl. I'd only known her for a couple days, but I was so proud of her. I turned around and Mel was standing there, shaking nervously. "It's going to be okay, Mel. Andrea's ready and so am I." She leaned forward and kissed me. I mean, a real love kiss. "Thank you, Andy. I'll never forget what you do for our daughter." I looked back at Andrea and realized that she had heard what her mom had just said. She just smiled at me as if to say, "Thank you, Daddy." I went to my room and began to prepare for surgery. When I woke up after the surgery, I remember the doctor telling me how I would feel. He wasn't lying, I felt terrible. A nurse came in, smiled at me, and ran her little tests. I told her how I felt, and she increased the dose of painkiller. I looked around the room, but no one was there. I knew Mel would be with her daughter, but I hoped Trina would change her mind and come to me. I was asleep, and when I woke up, I heard voices. It was my sister Jen and Mel. "Hey, little brother. How are you feeling?" "You look like shit," she laughed. We always teased each other. She was as good a sister as one could ever have. She was married, but she didn't have kids. I don't know why, we just didn't talk about it. "Jen, please don't make me laugh. It hurts like hell. How did it go? Is Andrea going to be okay?" Mel says, "It's too early to tell, but the doctor is very optimistic. He said the surgery went well, and now all we have to do is pray that her body will accept the liver." "He'll take my liver." "I don't give my body parts to just anyone," I started laughing. "Oh, that hurts? I can't even laugh without it hurting. Andy, I am forever indebted to you for what you did. You saved my daughter's life." "Our daughter's life?" "She is still my daughter even though we are not married. I will look forward to seeing her regularly. My children can't wait to meet their big sister." "What about Trina?" "You know, I tried to talk to her a few times, but she always walked away from me. I just wanted to be friends, but she'd say, 'No way.' I wish we could all be friends, but it doesn't seem like that's going to happen. I really hope Andrea gets closer to your other children." "Trina never told me she was talking to you, never. As for Andrea, I'm bringing my children to see her. They told me they can't wait to see her, and they also asked that she get better. I promised them I would do that." The three of us talked for a while, after which the doctor came in to see me. Jen and Mel said they would meet me later. I talked to the doctor, and he informed me about the state of my health and Andrea's. Even though I felt lousy, I called home to talk to the kids. Trina answered the phone and asked how I was doing. "Okay, I guess I was just calling to say hi to the kids." I really didn't want to talk much right now, especially to Trina. "Well, I'll probably stop by tomorrow after work. I've been too busy today to get out," Trina remarked. She handed the phone to the kids, and they each started talking on the inside phone. I told them I would talk to them the next day, but I just wanted to let them know that I was okay, and I missed them. "How's the girl, Daddy?" "Is she better?" Renee asked. "As far as I know, she's feeling better. I need to rest, girls, so give Andy a kiss for me and we'll talk to you tomorrow. I love and miss you all very much." "We love you too, Daddy. Bye." Trina came to see me the next day. She asked how I was feeling and how Andrea was doing. She didn't really seem concerned. She seemed to be asking me more because she thought she should. She spent most of her time telling me about a special meeting in Chicago that she might have to attend. It was a month or so away, so by then I would be out of the hospital and able to watch the kids. She said that my sister Jen was with our kids right now, so she could come and visit me. Her visit made me wonder if she wanted to stay married to me. I had nothing to refer to, but I sensed she was hiding something. Not that I had a sixth sense, just a feeling. She kissed me lightly on the lips and told me she'd be back in a couple days, then got up and left. After a while, Mel came in to see me, and it was as if the aura in the room had changed. I realized that I had married the wrong woman, but it was too late. I made my bed, and now I'm going to do everything I can to make my marriage work out for the sake of my children. There was nothing I wouldn't do for them, including living in a loveless marriage. I did call my kids every night and talk to them as promised. It was so nice to hear them argue about who should talk to me. Even little Andy got his turn on the phone. At least his first words were Dada. The next few days passed without much happening. Trina stopped by, and so did my sister Jen. Of course, Mel stopped by all the time. She pretty much lived in the hospital between seeing Andrea and me. I knew I would miss her when I got out of the hospital, but I had to try to fix my marriage. A few more days went by, and I had a few visitors from work and, of course, my mom. She said she was there for me when they took me out of the ICU, but I came out like a light. Mom was there for me every day after the surgery. She never talked about it, just visited Andrea and told me I had done everything right. I could tell by the look on her face that she too accepted Andrea as her granddaughter. She didn't need to tell me that. That's how grandmothers talk about their grandchildren. I asked Mel about Erica and her impending divorce. He's moving to California. You know, he's always been kind of a geek, but a good geek. He's a wonderful person, and I'm going to miss him. We agreed to stay friends. He really likes computers and said he found a job in Silicon Valley. He'll make a good husband for the right woman someday. It's just not me. What exactly do you do for a living, Mel? How are you going to survive? Like I said, Eric is a computer wizard. He installed my computer for me. I run a home-based business, doing billing for several medical facilities. I set my own work schedule just as long as the work gets done on time. Eric and I made an agreement where he leaves me the house and furnishings. Of course, I'll still pay. We each have our own car, so that's not a problem. We'll split our savings after the credit cards are paid off. There will be no support. It wouldn't be right for him to pay for someone else's child if we're not married. Her eyes watered. It was out of respect for Eric. Later that evening, Eric came to visit me. I was completely surprised. I didn't know what to say. I hope he doesn't want to fight, because in that case, he would definitely win. Andy, I just came by to say thank you. Thank you? I don't understand. You saved Andrea's life. You will realize she is the sweetest girl and I will miss her. I'm leaving for California tomorrow. I just talked to the doctors and Andrea's body seems to have accepted your liver. She's starting to get her color back. Eric, maybe you and Mel can work things out. I know she respects you. Andy, let's not kid each other. If she loved me as much as she loves you, I would have happily stayed after her. I played second fiddle for almost 10 years hoping she'd leave you, but she never did and probably never will. We had a good marriage, but I want my wife to love me, not just respect me. Can you understand that? We don't fight and we do everything together, but her heart belongs to you. I can't live like this anymore, especially since everyone will know Andrea is not my daughter by blood. So take care of my family. Don't worry about me. Computers are my first love, and I'll be in Silicon Valley. Thanks again, old boy, for giving Andrea another chance at life. You're a really good person. Eric, I'm so sorry. I really don't know what to say. What about Andrea? I know she's going to miss you. You're the only father she's ever known. I have to say that our relationship with Mel was based on respect. We decided from the beginning that my name would not be on the birth certificate. Under my father's name, she put your name and said you were overseas, so your signature was not needed. I know Mel and Andrea have been communicating, and they have their secrets. I think she knows about you and Mel. I'm sure she will miss me as much as I miss her. That's why she needs you in her life. She needs a father figure in her life. Why shouldn't he be her real father? Thank you again and take care of them. They will need you both. Before I could say anything, Eric turned and walked out the door. I lay there thinking about how complicated my life had become. At home, I had a wife, a good marriage, and 3 wonderful children. On the other side was an ex-girlfriend and a daughter I had just donated a kidney to. God, not the best situation I was in, I thought. Soon I was able to go home. I was not allowed to lift anything over 5 pounds. My girls understood, but Andy didn't know any better and wanted to be held in my arms. At least he was content to climb in next to me and sit on the bed or couch. My girls were like two little mommies waiting at my heels. Trina left for work every day, and when she came home, we were pleasant to each other. Jen stopped by every day for a couple hours to see if I needed anything. She was very helpful to me. I also talked to my mom every day to keep her updated on my condition. She took my 3 kids every couple days so I could get some rest. I was recovering well, but I didn't want to overwork myself. The first week I was home, I didn't call Mel directly. Jen would stop by the hospital or call Mel to see how Andrea was doing. She was going to be in the hospital for another week. The doctor was surprised at how well she was doing. Her skin color was back and she was gaining weight. He was very optimistic about her condition. After Andrea was sent home to recuperate, my girls wanted to meet her. I still wasn't allowed to drive, so we all got in the van and Jen drove us to Mel's. I wasn't sure about driving there, but with Jen and the kids, I figured it shouldn't be a problem. Mel's house was beautiful. It was well furnished and clean. I told the children that Andrea was a sick girl, so they should be quiet. Mel smiled when she saw my children. She introduced herself and said they could call her Mel. She led the 2 girls into Andrea's bedroom and introduced a smiling Andrea to them. I was surprised when I saw her. She no longer had jaundice, a yellowish color caused by liver problems, but had a beautiful, clear complexion. "Hi," Andrea said. "I'm your big sister." "Well, big sister anyway." She smiled as she saw that Renee was almost as tall as herself. "Don't I have a little brother?" "Where is he?" Andrea asked. Jen walked into the room, holding little Andy in her arms. "You were looking for this little guy?" Jen replied. I couldn't believe what Andrea said next. I know I'll never forget it. The things that come out of kids' mouths. "Hi, my sweet brother from the other mom. I'm your big sister, Andrea." Andy smiled. Jen sat him on the bed and he crawled over and sat next to his new big sister. Tears came to my eyes. I couldn't help it, but I wasn't alone when I looked over and saw Mel and Jen smiling too. I now knew that Andrea had been informed that I was her birth father. We spent the next couple of hours with the kids, letting them enjoy each other's company. The kids were upset when we told them that we had to leave and that Andrea needed a rest. The girls said they wouldn't leave unless I promised them they could come back again. Of course, I told them that they would see each other often. As we were leaving, I realized that I was going to have to pay for it that night when I told Trina we were going to Mel's. No sooner had Trina walked through the door than the girls informed her that they had met their big sister today. At least Trina had the good sense not to start yelling at me before the kids went to bed. They called me every name they could think of. I tried to explain that nothing had happened, and Jen was there with me. Of course, Trina accused me of Jen lying for me and to cover up the affair. "My God, Trina, why can't you believe we can just be friends? I've never cheated on you and I never will. My family is too important to me to have an affair. And then you accuse me of Jen lying for me. Trust me, Jen would never tolerate infidelity, not even from her brother. I told you the kids wanted to get to know each other and had a good time. Why are you looking so glum? Not everyone wants to cheat on their spouse. I promise you I won't." She yelled some more and we went to bed. We still slept together, and I tried to lie next to Trina, but she wouldn't do it. Over time, everything healed pretty well. The doctor told me to wait another month before returning to work. I called the plant and let them know about it. Trina reminded me about her trip to Chicago in a couple weeks. She would be gone for a whole week. I figured I wouldn't have a problem with the babysitter. Now I could pick Andy up and he was happy. The next week, our friends Bob and Maria came over to watch a movie and play cards. The girls chose the movie same time next year. Thus, we bring you up to speed from the very beginning of this story. As I mentioned at the very beginning, something happened between Maria and Mel. I kept thinking about the way they were looking at each other. I saw Trina whisper something to Maria before she and Bob left. I knew something was wrong, but I wasn't sure what. Things hadn't been good between us since the surgery. We hadn't made love in a long time. I decided to give it a try. At first, she pushed my hand away, but I kept trying. "Are you ready?" she asked. "You're going away for a week, and I don't want to wait for you to come back." And yes, finally, we had sex. I often wonder why her lovemaking doesn't carry over into our daily lives. Only during sex does she seem loving. The next morning, she went to work, and I cleaned up the house, something I didn't often help with. There were folded clothes on the dresser, and I was putting them away in a drawer. I noticed a package of birth control pills. When she started taking them, I had a vasectomy over a year ago. I pulled them out and put them on the dresser. I opened them to see if she had taken them. I knew I would be asking her about it tonight. God, I hope she has a good reason to use birth control. Our marriage was already on the rocks. I looked around for anything else that might be amusing but found nothing. We both didn't use the computer much at home, and we had the same email address. There was nothing unusual about that. I checked a few of our phone bills, but they were fine. Maybe I was getting paranoid. When Trina got home that evening, I asked her about birth control pills. Why did you go through my drawers? You had no right. Really? I live here just like you do. I didn't peek. After great sex last night, I decided to help clean up the house and was just putting your clothes away when I noticed the pills. Are you going to explain to me why you're taking them knowing I had a vasectomy? You bastard, you say you trust me, and then you give me the 3rd degree. I'll tell you why I have to take the pill. A few months ago, I was having problems with my period and I went to the doctor. She advised me to take the pill to control the timing of my periods and make them more regular. Why didn't you tell me you were having problems with a woman? What would you have done? Would have prescribed me pills or told me to go to the doctor like I did. Besides, you were too worried about your other family members at the time. I didn't want to bother you with my health problems. This is inappropriate, Trina. You're my wife and you mean a lot to me. I'm sorry for doubting you, but I got worried when I saw the pills. I was afraid. I was afraid you might be having an affair. I'm sorry. Okay, now you know why I take the pills. Not because I want to, but because my doctor told me to. After talking to her, I felt better. I admit I still had my doubts, but I wanted to believe her. Thursday night we had sex again. It was almost an instant replay of that day. Friday morning she was in a great mood. She kissed the kids and me goodbye before leaving for Chicago. I asked her to come back soon so we could continue what we had started. On Saturday I took the kids to visit Mel and Andrea. We spent the whole day together like one big happy family. I wish my life with Trina was the same instead of fighting all the time. There were some feelings between Mel and I, but we both knew it was best not to go with our feelings. I was watching TV with the kids on Sunday when there was a knock on the door. I opened it and saw 2 old high school buddies. April and Mandy had graduated with me and Trina. They were gathering information for our next reunion. They were writing down as many facts as they could so they could print a book and hand it out to all of our former classmates. They got our address from Melissa. I'd forgotten she'd given it to me. I invited the women into the house and gave them all tea. We did all the preliminary preparations. How's it going and what's new? April spoke first. So, Andy, tell me what's new in your life and where you're working for our book. I told a few facts about how I joined the service and where I was working now. I didn't know if Melissa had told them about the operation, so I left that out for now. Then they asked me about Trina. I told them about the travel agency Trina worked for. Mandy looked surprised. Oh my God, this is so weird. What's weird about working at a travel agency? I asked. It's just that her ex-boyfriend, Zach Carter, works at the same travel agency, but in Chicago. It's so weird. Old friends working for the same company, but in different states. How do you know that, Mandy? Have you talked to him? No, we talked to his mother last week. She told us all about him and how rich and powerful he is. I remember in high school, all the girls wanted to date him. His mom says he's still in great shape and works out every day. Can I get a copy of his profile? I think Trina would love to get in touch with him. I didn't need the information for Trina. I wanted it for myself. I was starting to smell a rat, a very large rat. I had a feeling Trina knew everything about Zach, but only firsthand. Sure, Andy, I have an extra copy of his profile, but you'll probably have a hard time contacting him. Why? His wife is an Illinois state senator, like Zach's mom said. You'll probably have to get an inspection to see them, Mandy laughed. I laughed with them. I was burning up inside. After I got Zach's character reference, I said goodbye to my former classmates. I wondered if I should call Bob to chat and see if he knew anything about Zach. But I decided not to. I didn't want to implicate Maria in case I needed information from her. Instead, I called Trina's room in Chicago. The phone rang 5 times before Trina answered. She seemed to be breathing heavily. Hi, she said. Well, hello, dear wife. How are you this fine morning? Why are you calling me, Andy? We said you should never call unless it's an emergency. Are the kids okay? The kids are fine, but their father is a little pissed off. Why did you call, Andy? I don't have time for your silly games. It's Sunday. You don't have meetings on Sunday, do you? Oh, I forgot. You're having one of your secret meetings with Zach right now. Did I interrupt your sex? I'm so sorry. That's enough, Andy. I've heard enough of your nonsense. We'll talk about it when I get home next week. You stupid bitch, I can hear him in the background. I'm going to hang up the phone, Andy. We'll talk about it when I get home. Talk to me now or I'll burn the damn house down. I could hear Zach in the background whispering with Trina. That stupid asshole didn't have the sense to keep his voice down. Why don't you tell your boyfriend to shut up, or I'll finish this conversation with his wife, Senator. Please, Andy, don't call her. I heard her say something to Zach. Zach, get your hands off me. He knows you're here. We can't hide it anymore. He's going to call your wife if I don't talk to him right now. How long have you been seeing him? Since you won't answer me, I'm guessing about 7 years now. No wonder you come home and want sex. You couldn't get rid of him, or maybe you wanted to have a baby with him and cover it up by sleeping with me. Please, Andy, I can't think right now. Please, let's talk later. Whose children am I raising, my own or your lover's? Answer me, whose children am I raising? Please, Andy, I don't know. I honestly don't know. Wow, honesty is not one of your qualities. Gee, I may have to sue my lover for 6 years of child support. I'm sure the senator will want to support my children. Please don't say that. How the hell am I supposed to talk? I've been as honest with you as I could be. I promised never to cheat on you and I never did, even though you blamed me for our entire married life. On the other hand, you've been having fun with that asshole behind my back for at least 7 years. How the hell am I supposed to tell you about this? Andy, I don't know what to say right now. We'll talk when I get home. The only thing we're going to do when you get home is file a divorce and get the kids tested so your damn lover can claim father's rights. Now go back and enjoy your boyfriend. Just so you know, if the kids pass the test and turn out to be mine, I'll take them away from you. No, you can't take my kids away from me. I hung up the phone. I needed more information. I called Bob. He was back from a fishing trip. He was usually only gone for a few days. Bob, Andy here. I lost Trina's room number and thought you might have Maria's number. He handed it to me and asked if there were any problems. No problem. I just wanted to ask her something. Okay, thanks, Bob. I called Maria's room and she answered. Hi. Maria, it's Andy. Andy, Trina isn't here right now. I can have her call you. Cut the crap, Maria. I know where she is, who she's with, and what she's doing. I don't know what you're talking about. I knew she was trying to call my bluff, but I wasn't bluffing. Room 804, Zach Carter. Now answer some questions or I'll ask your husband, Bob. Are you trying to blackmail me? Blackmail? Hell no! I just figured that if Trina had an affair for 7 years and you covered for her, you might have gotten a little something on the side yourself. Either you tell me what I want to know, or I'll tell Bob about Trina, and you can talk to him about why you were hiding it. What do you want to know, Andy? So you had sex with Bob, too? You have an ex-boyfriend, too? Please don't tell Bob. I did it the first 2 times, and I felt so guilty that I don't stay in the same room with Trina anymore. It was a big mistake, and I sincerely regret it. Who was that with, Maria? Please, Andy, I told you I did it, and I'm sorry about it. It was some friend of Zach's. I want to forget about it. Don't tell Bob. Tell me everything you know about Trina and Zach, and I promise I won't tell Bob about our conversation. Okay, I'll trust you. You don't have a choice, but I keep my promises. Trina found out that Zach worked at the same agency. She started having an affair with him. As far as I know, it was only at these seminars. What she said about him, and I'll know if you're lying and our deal will be off. She said she always loved him and made a mistake marrying you. I'm sorry, Andy, but you said you wanted to know the truth. She couldn't wait for the seminars to be with him. They hardly ever went to meetings, and they stayed in their room most of the time and went out to dinner. What about my children, Maria? Tell me what you know. Oh my God, Andy, I don't know what to say. She was hoping that all 3 kids were Zach's. It was her way of getting even with you. It didn't make any sense. I never understood why she wanted you to raise Zach's kids. So my kids are actually Zach's? I don't know. She always hoped they would be, but as far as I know, she really doesn't know. Needless to say, Marie, Trina and I are getting a divorce, and I'm going to have the children tested to see who will support them. I will keep my promise to you and not tell Bob about this conversation. In any other matter, I will not lie to him. As for friends, I never want to see you in my house again. I needed someone to talk to. I wanted to talk to Mel so badly, but I didn't think it was wise. I had no idea how Trina would handle the situation. And the last thing I wanted to do was involve Mel in the story. I called my sister Jen and asked her to come over. She sensed the urgency in my voice and said she'd be right over. Jen and I talked it over and thought about what scenarios could happen. I was confused about what to do next. Now I know why the temporary guilty plea exists. I would kill both Zach and Trina if they walked through my door right now. Jen and I agreed that we should call Zach's wife. She's earned the right to know what kind of bastard she married. I looked at Zach's profile and it showed his home number. I called it, but I got the receptionist. I asked to speak to Mrs. Carter. There was a pause, then I was told to wait a minute. Who is it? The woman asked. I'm Andrew Connors from Ohio. And you're Mrs. Carter. Yes, that's right, but I'm called Senator Conroy. My husband's name is Carter. Well, Senator, your husband is at the hotel right now having fun with my wife. I thought you might want to know. Damn him, he said he's not seeing that married woman anymore. Is her name Trina? Yes, that's her, Trina Connors from Ohio. His high school girlfriend who would soon become my ex-wife. Mr. Connors, thank you for making me aware of the situation. I can't talk right now, but I'll have my people contact you in the next few days. I don't want to talk to your people. If you want, I'll talk to you in person. I don't need anything from you. I just wanted to make you aware of your husband's infidelity. I hung up. Obviously, she knew about her husband's cheating. I wondered if Trina was his only girlfriend. Well, now I'd have to sit around and wait for Trina to show up and start divorce proceedings. The hardest part was getting tested to see if I was the biological father of my children. What if they're not mine? I raised each of them from day one. They were my family and my life. Around midnight, there was a knock on my door. I just sat on the couch and thought about my problems. I put my 3 kids to bed and hugged and kissed each of them, wondering if they were mine. Damn, I wanted to drink so badly, but after my liver surgery, I wasn't allowed to drink for probably a year. A knock startled me and I heard it again. I looked out and saw a policeman. I opened the door. I'm Officer Bates with the Sheriff's Department. Are you Andrew Connors? Trina Connors' husband? The officer asked. Yes, officer, it's me. What's going on here? I regret to inform you that your wife was killed in an automobile accident in rural Illinois. The Illinois Post Office has asked me to inform you of her death. I was shocked. One moment I hated her to the core and wanted to kill her, and now she was dead. I couldn't believe what I had just heard. I wanted to wake up, hoping I was dreaming and that the past few days had been a bad dream. But it wasn't a dream, and I wasn't asleep. What happened, officer? Are you sure it was her? Maybe it was a mistake? I just mumbled further. I'm sorry, Mr. Connors, there can be no mistake. It was an automobile accident and they both died. According to the report I received, their car went off the road, over an embankment and hit a tree. Both passengers died on the spot. You said they. The other person in the car was Maria? No, sir, that was Zach Carter. Did you know him? I was stunned. I thought it was probably Trina and Maria coming home early, but it wasn't. That meant she was still spending the afternoon and evening with Zach, even after talking to me. I knew I had to answer the officer. Yes, he was from the company's Chicago office. I haven't seen him for several years. What time did the accident happen? About 7 o'clock, give or take a few minutes. It took us a while to gather the information and contact you. Again, Mr. Connors, I'm sorry you were the one who had to report this, but we wanted you to be one of the first to know. If you contact the Chicago Sheriff's Office tomorrow, they may be able to tell you more. Good night, sir. Thank you, officer, I said as I closed the door. In that moment, I became numb. I felt hate, loss, love, disgust, and even fear. Fear of what to do next. I had 3 small children sleeping soundly, and tomorrow I had to tell them that their mom had been murdered. I couldn't sleep, and I didn't want to call anyone at this time of day. I knew that tomorrow was going to be one of the worst days of my life. I had to face reality. Trina was dead, and I had 3 children to take care of that might not even be mine. I wouldn't wish that situation on anyone. I must have dozed off in my chair, and at 7 in the morning I was awakened by the telephone. The caller ID said, "Personal call." I answered it. "Mr. Andrew Connors?" a voice said. "Yes, that's him." "Who's calling?" "1 second, sir," the voice said. Then I heard the female voice I'd heard yesterday. "Mr. Connors, this is Senator Conroy. I mean Janice Conroy. Under the circumstances, I'd prefer to be called by my first name. I know you've been informed of the accident. I'm very sorry for your loss, but I need to talk to you. I need a big favor." "Mrs. Conroy, you lost your husband too. I know the situation is not going to be the best for either of us. What kind of service do you need? Can you not mention the affair between my husband and your wife? I know it will sound bad, but it will ruin my political future. There is nothing I can do right now to change the situation, but it will ruin my life. So you want me to lie and say it didn't happen?" "No, of course not. I just don't want you to talk about this affair in the press. You're going to get a few calls. I can take care of it from this side and let it go quietly, but I know someone will be looking for a story here. It's not going to be good for either of us." "Mrs. Conroy, I won't interfere with personal matters if you will do 2 things for me." "What do you want?" "I'll do it if I can. I want a real account of this accident. The one the high-ranking people are hiding. I also need a copy of Zach's DNA. You know what that's for." "I'll do my best. I'll be expecting him shortly after the funeral. Please don't take me for some kind of swagger. I want to know. No, I need to know the truth at all costs. I'll get you what you want. I just hope you'll be a man of your word and keep the affair a secret." "I always keep my promises, Janice, always." "Good. Then I'll get the reports to you as soon as possible, and thank you." I hung up the phone and made coffee. I knew it was early, but I called Jen and told her about the accident. It took her by surprise, but she said she'd be right over. My mom and dad were always up early, so I let them know about it too. Now for the hard part. I called Trina's mom and dad. Her dad picked up the phone and I told him the sad news. I explained as best I could and told him that she and Zach had just gone out to dinner and Zach was taking her to the hotel when the accident happened. They asked me to keep in touch with them, and of course I said I would. My kids got up, I made them breakfast, and after Jen showed up, we took the 3 kids into the living room and told them the very sad news. "Renee, Ashley, you're going to have to be very brave. Mom's dead and she's not coming home." Tears came to their eyes and they began to cry. Of course, when little Andy saw his sisters crying, he started crying too. It was the hardest thing to watch my children cry. I hugged each of them and let them cry. I tried to be strong for them, but I was crying myself too. I held the girls and Jen held Andy. We did our best to answer their questions. There was a knock on the door and Jen called out, "Come in!" It was Mel. "I'm so sorry to hear what happened." She and Andrea were both crying. Ashley ran over to Mel and climbed into her lap, while Mel sat down and gently rocked my youngest daughter. Andrea sat next to her mother. "How did you know?" I asked Mel. Jen spoke up. "I called her after you called me. I hope you don't mind." "Of course not. I was just surprised." When the kids had calmed down a bit, Andrea offered to take them to their rooms and play games with them. It was a godsend because shortly after they left for their room, the phone rang. It was journalists and reporters. They all said the same thing. "We have some questions." I got angry and started hanging up the phones. Jen said she'd handle the phone calls. She talked to the next reporter. "Look, I don't understand why all you news people keep bothering us. My brother just lost his wife and is raising 3 young children. We're not celebrities and would like some privacy. I don't care if Zach Carter is married to an out-of-state politician. It has nothing to do with us. Why don't you bother her if you think it's news?" We turned on the news and there was a report. A local woman was murdered in Chicago last night. She was with the husband of State Senator Janice Conroy. Senator Conroy said the woman, one Trina Connors from Ohio, was an associate of Zach Carter, and they were just coming back from dinner. Earlier in the evening, she had spoken to her husband and said she would not be able to join them. She is very saddened by the loss of her husband and has sent condolences to Mr. Connors and his family in Ohio. We will report details of this story as they become available. Well, we knew why we were getting the call. I guess we need to get a story ready for those stupid reporters and repeat the same thing over and over until they leave us alone. I'll take the next call, Jen, I said. Hello. Yes, this is Andrew Connors. Look, I don't understand all these calls. I'm just going to tell you what I know. Zach Carter and my wife, Trina, work for the same travel agency, but in different states. They meet periodically and discuss travel opportunities. They had just had dinner and were on their way back to her house when the accident happened. The man continued to ask questions. Yes, I talked to my wife that morning and knew she was going out to dinner. They had been friends since high school. I knew Zach personally. We all went to high school together. It was a terrible accident, and she will be terribly missed by me and our 3 children. If you have any further questions, I suggest you contact your senator. After that, I hung up. Jen and I took turns answering the stupid phone. We knew they wouldn't stop calling until we told them something. The phone was ringing off the hook. It was a good thing Jen had called Mel. It would have been hard to keep an eye on the kids and answer the phone and answer the door all the time. We received several calls from concerned neighbors and friends. They were hard enough to deal with, let alone other calls. As if we didn't have enough problems already. Lawyer after lawyer called us and asked if we wanted to represent them in the event of a lawsuit. We basically told them to go to hell and that we weren't going to sue anyone. If we wanted to be represented, it wouldn't be by an ambulance chaser lawyer. At the end of the day, the calls died down a bit. Mel made us all lunch. The neighbors brought food, and Mel cooked everything for us. I hardly spoke to her, but I was glad she was there. It's strange when there's a death in the family. A lot of people bring you food when you have the least appetite. At least we didn't have to worry about cooking anything. There was a knock on the door and I assumed it was another neighbor, but it turned out to be a damn TV reporter. Mr. Connors, may I have a word with you? Said the woman with the microphone, followed by the cameraman. Who the hell do you think you are? You come to my goddamn house one day after I lost my wife, and for what? For some goddamn gossip? No need to swear, Mr. Connors. It's for television. To hell with your goddamn television! I lost my wife, my 3 little kids lost their mother, and all you think about is the news. Maybe you can take pictures of her body strewn across the damn highway and get 1 or 2 more readers. You make me sick. Mister Connors, we just want to know the truth. No, you don't. You need a damn lie to sell to your listeners. I'll tell you the truth and see if you're satisfied with it. My wife and Zach were high school friends years ago. Were they lovers, Mr. Connors? Lovers? They were 16-year-old kids. Do you consider those to be lovers? You're just a sick man. My wife and I are married. We have 3 children, ages 2, 4, and 6. She works full-time at a travel agency. Tell me, when did she have time to have a torrid affair with an ex-boyfriend 2 states away? But she was with him. Yes, they had a business meeting in Chicago and they went out to dinner. A lot of old friends have dinner together. I talked to her the day before, and if you were listening to your own TV station, you would have heard that Senator Conroy was going to go to dinner with them. All you want is damning gossip and trying to ruin lives. At that moment, little Andy was peering out of the storm door. Look at the door at my son. Tell him you think his mother is a whore, and all she wanted was an affair with an ex-boyfriend. Tell my little boy that his mother didn't love him, that all she could think about was wanting to have sex with another woman's husband. I wanted so badly to say, screw it, but out of respect for the children present outside the door, I didn't. You disgust me. I've said before that I wouldn't wish a situation like this on my worst enemy, but in your case, I might make an exception. Let some reporter blow your life to pieces with lies and accusations, and you can live with it. One last thing. If I hear one lie about my wife or family on your news network, you can consider me suing your ass along with your network. You weren't invited here, and there are no celebrities living here. Now get off my property. When I got back to the house, I picked up my boy and just hugged him, and he hugged me back. Jen smiled at me. She knew I hadn't really told the whole truth, but hopefully the reporters hadn't guessed that. Things seemed to calm down after that. The children were playing in the room again, and Jen and Mel were discussing funeral arrangements. They were to deliver Trina's body within the next 2 days, and we wanted the funeral to take place as soon as possible. The women said they would take care of all the arrangements, and that suited me just fine. I was lost when it came to things like that. I went to the bathroom, and when I got out of there, I looked into the room where the girls were playing. I heard Ashley talking to Andrea. "I miss my mom." "I know how you feel, Ash. I miss my daddy. Well, his name was Eric. He wasn't my real daddy, but I miss him. He was always there for me." "Why did he leave you?" Ashley asked. "Because he wasn't my real father. Dads shouldn't abandon their little girls." "It's not nice," Ashley replied. "It's okay. I have another daddy now, and this is my real daddy, and he's your daddy too." "Ashley, do you think your mom will be my mom too? Since we have the same daddy, why can't we have the same mom?" Tears came to my eyes when I heard those words from my little girl. I didn't want them to know I was listening. "Tell you what, Ash, you talk to Dad, and I'll talk to Mom, and we'll see what happens. No matter what happens, I'll always be your big sister, and you can always come to me." I watched Andrea hug Ashley. Over the next couple days, the calls pretty much stopped. A news reporter who came to our house showed only the nice part of our conversation about what a wonderful wife and mother Trina was. I guess the TV station didn't want to risk a libel suit. Also, there was a news story about a high-profile divorce of a Hollywood couple. Our accident case was already old news. Jen and Mel did a great job with the funeral arrangements. We laid Trina to rest one night and buried her the next day. I couldn't believe how many people showed up. Jen and I stood by the casket and greeted everyone who came to pay their respects. Mel sat on a couch off to the side with her 4 kids. She wanted to stay on the sidelines. Every time I looked at her, she had another child on her lap. One minute they were crying, the next minute they were laughing. Every now and then one of them would come over and stand next to me. As we paid our last respects to Trina before closing the casket, we all cried. So sad and yet so silly at the same time. She could have had a wonderful life, but she was looking for greener grass. Mel asked her church to organize a luncheon for everyone who came to the funeral. It was a wonderful lunch, and we had one last opportunity to socialize with many of our friends. I even thanked Maria and Bob for coming. I talked to Maria for a while and told her that I hoped she had learned her lesson from Trina's death. She had a good man, and she should do everything she can to save her marriage. She hugged me and thanked me for keeping our secret. I really hoped she would learn from Trina's mistake. In the days that followed, Mel and Jen asked what Trina's things we wanted to keep. I replied that I didn't have any ideas. I told them to give all the jewelry and keepsakes to the girls. They set most of it aside for future use, but gave the girls enough stuff to play with as kids. Mel remarked how nice Trina's clothes were. I told her she could keep them and wear whatever she wanted, since they were similar in size. If looks could kill, sweet Mel would have killed me on the spot. Jen started to laugh. "You are a stupid, stupid man. You want to give your dead wife's clothes to your old girlfriend?" "I don't think so, little brother." "She said they were nice. I was just trying to be accommodating and let her get what she wanted." "Women!" "I'll never understand them. What to do with them?" Jen looked at Mel like I wasn't even there. "Let's have a garage sale and sell all the clothes. They should bring a decent price." That was the next thing they were going to do. The phone rang, and I heard a familiar voice on the other end. When I hung up, I asked the girls if they could take the kids to the park or somewhere else for a couple hours. I had someone coming over and we needed some alone time. I told them I would explain everything to them later. As they left, there was a knock on the door. It was Senator Janice Conroy and her driver. "Please come in. I've been expecting you." She asked her driver to get on the porch and entered the house. I was surprised at her appearance. She was a very pleasant-looking woman, but she was probably in her 50s. I didn't realize she was that old since Zach was our age. "Mr. Connors, I was in Columbus, Ohio on state business and thought I'd take advantage of this short trip to provide you with the information you requested." She handed me a manila envelope that she said contained an unofficial accident report, as well as Zach's DNA card. "Would you like a cup of coffee, Mrs. Conroy?" "Please just call me Janice today, and a cup of coffee would be nice." "Just a little cream, please. I want to thank you for being so tactful and telling me about the affair. It wouldn't have done any good if the truth had come out. The insurance company called me and asked me to talk to you about settling the matter. Janice, I don't want your money. I just want to get this over with so my family and I can move on with our lives. Andy, you'll get dozens of lawyers calling you saying they can get millions of dollars if you contact their firm. The truth is, a case can stay open for years while they dive deeper and deeper into it. The insurance company doesn't want that to happen, and neither do I. They've made you an offer. If you accept it, the case will be closed. You won't be bothered anymore since the case is settled. What is this offer you keep talking about? Is it your money? Like I said, I just want it to be over. It's the insurance company's money. They'll give you $100,000 for each of your children and put it in a trust account. The money will be paid out after they turn 18, and you will be the custodian of the account. The children will receive the money only at your direction until they turn 25 years old. Then they will manage their own accounts. Why are they offering this money? Was there any offense? No, it's just that everyone is obsessed with the courts these days. It's easier to sue someone than it is to look for a job. This will just close the account. They'll also pay for all the medical expenses after the accident. Hospital bills, ambulance bills, and other expenses. So you'll get $300,000 plus medical payments. That's $400,000 plus medical. I have 4 children, not 3. My second daughter lives with her mother, but if I agree to this, she should get her share too. I'm sorry, I didn't know about that. I'll make sure you have enough for all 4 kids. So if we're done, I'd like... Janice, this may be the last time I see you. Can you tell me about you and Zach and why you let it go on after you found out? I think so. You deserve to know. I met Zach when he was in college. He was a tough, gruff guy. I was asked to teach a political science class, and we became friends. As you can see, I'm 25 years older than Zach. At first, it was fun to be with a young man and teach him about love. I know you've heard of trophy wives. Well, Zach was my trophy husband. I had this handsome stud on hand at all my parties. At first, Zach liked being the center of attention, but when he realized it was about me and not him, he became uncomfortable. He asked me to buy him a travel agency. I bought it and owned it. He used to run it. He took courses in the travel industry because he needed something to specialize in. Why didn't he divorce you and go about his business? Money and power. I had both, he had neither. I gave him everything he wanted within reason. There was nothing in his name, not even the car he wrecked. If he'd left me at any point, he'd have nothing left. People get used to the life he led. He met your wife at one of the conferences about 7 or so years ago. A few years later, I found out they were together, and I gave him an ultimatum. Either he stops his games, especially with a married woman, or I'll make sure he never does it again. He seemed to have stopped, or at least hid it well until I heard from you. For your information, he had other mistresses. Most of them could either be bought or scared off. I didn't know how to approach your wife, since he seemed to see her once every couple years. What will the report say to me? I feel with every bone in my body that it wasn't fair play. According to unofficial reports, Zach had his stick bitten off. The witness said the black SUV struck Zach's vehicle in the rear quarter, causing it to spin and spin out of control. It then flew over an embankment, flipped many times, and came to a stop, hitting a tree. The official report states that the witness was far behind the other vehicles and was unsure if he was hit by the SUV or not. Janice, did you kill them? Personally, I don't. There are forces above me and I can't speak for them, nor do I want to know. I did love Zach in my own way. In a way, he was my boy toy, and he was fun to be with. Well, Andrew Connors, this may be the last time we speak. The report you have has the names removed, so just in case it falls into the wrong hands, we'll be protected. Again, I'm sorry for your loss and we'll take those insurance documents to you tomorrow. Thank you for being considerate. After Janice left, I opened the envelope and the report was just as she said it would be. Trina really was a slut for Zach. I now knew where she had learned the different ways of making love and who she was thinking about at that moment. It wasn't me. The other report contained complete information about Zach's DNA. Janice had indeed kept her promises. I had to wonder if she had anything to do with the accident. Maybe I'd better never find out. When everyone came back, I told the girls who my guest was. They were surprised when I told them who it was. I explained that we had an agreement and that the senator had taken the time to honor her side. The girls asked to read the report. Are you guys sure you really want to read this? I know you're women and curious, but this is some pretty deep shit. You're not going to like what you read. Mel looked at me. Andy, since I care about you, I'm going to forget about being curious. You can't ride this train through life alone. You have to be able to share with someone if you suddenly need to talk about it. She smiled sweetly at me after that. When they read the report, they were saddened. Like me, they hoped that maybe Trina would feel remorse after talking to me this morning. I told them some of what Janice Conroy had shared with me. My sister Jen said, I know it's awful, but maybe Trina's death is God's providence. How much worse it would have been if it had continued if the children were at the center of it all. I knew she was right, only she said it out loud. That was Jen, never afraid to speak her mind. After she left, I sat at my desk, reading the report again and looking at Zach's DNA. Mel sat down at the table next to me. What are you going to do with that? She pointed to Zach's DNA report. I have an appointment at the clinic tomorrow to take tests and find out if Zach is the biological father. Don't do it, Andy. For your sake and for the sake of the kids, don't do it. I have to know, Mel. I have to know. Why? Why is this so important right now? Zach is dead, Trina is dead, and nothing good will come from that knowledge. What if you're not the biological father? What are you going to do? Give up the kids, send them to an orphanage. Raise them with anger in your heart? Please, Andy, listen to me. You're their father. You've been there for every one of them from day one. You delivered their babies, changed their dirty diapers, but most of all, you have always been there for them. You are the one they call daddy, not someone else. Don't let those thoughts into their mind and heart. Please promise me you'll think about it, Andy. Think about your children. Okay, I'll think about it tonight. If we go, I'll stop by tomorrow when we're done. Mel kissed me lightly on the lips. It felt so good. She called Andrea and they went home. I did what I had promised and thought it over. The next day, it was the middle of the afternoon when I pulled up to Mel's house. The kids got out of the car and ran to her house. Andrea was at school, but Mel had told them they could play in her room. Renee was supposed to be at school, but I had already canceled her the day before. You did it, didn't you? Muttered Mel. I'm sorry, but I promised the kids, I replied. What, you did it for the kids? What are you talking about? I promised the kids that I would take them to McDonald's for lunch, and I'm keeping my promises. She smiled. So you didn't follow through? Well, you know, different thing, not lunch. No, I thought about what you said. They are my children and always will be. I want to keep it that way. So what happens now? I sat on the couch and Mel came over and sat on my lap. After the funeral, we were the closest we'd been, aside from the occasional kiss. It was so nice to be around her. She was a wonderful woman. You'll grieve for a while, we'll start dating, and then you'll ask me to marry you. I'll say yes, and we'll live happily ever after, just like in a fairy tale. The most beautiful smile appeared on her face. I smiled too. What if I don't want to marry you? What then? Then I'll just live with you. I already lost you once, it won't happen again. Besides, I've heard that babies talk. They like me, you know that, and I love them. How about sex? Are you good? I started laughing. Honey, it's not just going to be sex with you. It's going to be love, and it's going to be great. Mel was laughing now too. About that time, Andrea came home from school. She saw Mel sitting on my lap and started smiling. Andrea shouted to the rest of the kids, Renee, Ashley, Andy, come here quickly. There's something you need to see. Mel stayed where she was, not moving an inch. The children came in. The last one, of course, was Andy. They smiled at Mel. Ashley spoke first. Does that mean you're going to be our mom since our mom is dead? With tears in her eyes, Mel got off my lap, walked over to Ashley, knelt down and hugged her. Sweetheart, I would love to be your mom. Your other mom will always be with you in your heart, and I will be here to take care of you. Andy wanted a hug too, so he walked over and Mel hugged the baby. Renee came up to me. Daddy, when are you getting married and where are we going to live? Well, honey, first I want to make sure you kids want us to get married. Of course there is, Dad. What a silly question. We already love Mel and you're Andrea's dad. We just want to know where we're going to live. Honey, I haven't even asked Mel to marry me yet. Well, do it, Daddy. Do it right now. All the kids started yelling, "Do it, Daddy!" Even little Andy. I laughed and Mel almost cried. I walked over to her and took her hand as she stood up. I knelt down in front of her and said, "Mel, my children and I all love you. Will you be their mom and my wife? I have to buy you a ring to make it official. I wasn't planning on doing it today, but I can't think of a better time and better witnesses." Before I could finish, the kids are already saying, "Answer him, Mommy, answer him." The funny thing is that even before she answered, the kids started calling her Mommy. How much longer do I have to think about this, kids? After all, it's a big step, Mel replied with a smile on her face. Just a minute, Mom, Andrea replied. We both know you've wanted this your whole life. Oops, there goes another secret. Andrea looked back and smiled at me. Mel tried to look serious, but she wasn't very good at it. After careful consideration, I decided to say, "Yes, I will marry you, Andrew Connors." The kids were jumping up and down and saying, "Kiss her, Daddy, kiss her and seal the deal." I did, and it felt so good. Kids, just so you know, we won't be married until sometime later. We have a lot to do first, but we will see each other almost every day, Mel replied. She didn't want to explain to her children about waiting after death, but she told them they could call her mom if they wanted to. After the kids went back to Andrea's room to play, I looked over at a smiling Mel. That went well, she laughed. If we're going to date, are we going to have sex? If so, can we do it on the first date? I asked. For you, honey, anytime you want. We don't even need a date. Saying that, she walked over to the phone and called my sister Jen. What was that? I asked. Jen is coming over to take the kids to the movies. They wanted to see a children's movie called Happy Feet, and Jen is going to take them. Honey, I have a question for you. Are you and I going to stay here and close the deal we made earlier? Before I could say anything, she called the kids back into the room. Kids, Aunt Jen and Uncle Ralph are coming to take you all to Happy Feet. The kids started jumping up and down. Daddy and I have some things to do, but we'll be here when you get back. Be good for Aunt Jen and Uncle Ralph, do you hear me? Yes, Mom, we can all hear you, replied a smiling Andrea. Jen and Ralph showed up a few minutes later. Ashley ran up to them as soon as they crossed the threshold of the house. Mom and Dad are getting married and you can come to the wedding, but we don't know when it will be yet. Jen looked us over. Kind of unexpected, right, guys? She smiled, which signified her approval. Renee says, Yeah, Dad proposed in front of all of us. It was great. They kissed and everything to seal the deal. All of them? Replied a smiling Ralph, until he was nudged by Jen's elbow. Well, congratulations, Jen said. We'd better take the kids to the movies so you can finish up your unfinished business. We'll stop for pizza on the way home so you'll have about 3 hours. Hopefully you'll be able to finish your business by then. Why are you laughing, Uncle Ralph? Ashley asked. I was just thinking about Dancing Penguin, which we're going to see. It should be a very good movie. When they left, I played dumb and asked what unfinished business we had to do. Mel pulled me into her bedroom. I've waited 11 years to put you in my arms again. Please make love to me, but don't forget that we have a 3-hour workday. Honey, I'll only need 3 minutes for the first round. We both started laughing as we undressed. We made it through the Christmas holidays. We spent a lot of time together. We were a family, except we weren't married yet and still lived each in our own house. We tried to wait as long as possible, but the kids wanted us to get married as soon as possible. After the holidays, the kids got together and asked if they could have a big Valentine's Day party. Angie smiled. We started calling her Angie as the kids did. We asked them how they chose Angie over Andrea, and they said they already had Andy, their little brother. So they chose Angie, and it didn't bother Andrea, and therefore it didn't bother us. Dad, the other 3 kids have birthdays the week of Valentine's Day. Mine is in March, of course, but that's okay. We want you and Mom to get married, so we decided to have a big combined birthday wedding party for all of us. Since you and Mom don't need wedding gifts, guests can bring gifts for Renee, Ash, and Andy, and for me too if they don't mind me getting them a month early. What do you say? I'm just the talker in the group. All of us kids thought it was a great idea. Mel and I couldn't keep from laughing. All these kids had gotten together and were making plans for us. We believed Angie, plus the other kids were with her and waiting for our answer. The problem was how to proceed without hurting their feelings. Angie, I know you and the others have given a lot of thought to the planned party. I think we should find out what your mom has to say about it. I had no idea what to say to the kids. Just looking at their faces and the look of hope on their faces was so sweet. I had to pass the responsibility on to Mel. Mel looked at me, then at the kids' faces. She knew I had dropped it in her lap. I tried not to look at her while she searched for an answer. Mel said, I'm a little surprised at you kids. Having a big birthday party is one thing. The fact that Daddy and I got married is okay too, but expecting everyone to come to the party and bring you all presents is wrong. I thought we taught you to put others first. I'm a little embarrassed that you used our wedding to give yourself gifts. The children lowered their little heads. Mel seemed to say the right things to them. Renee said, Mom, if we turn down the presents, can we have a birthday party and you and Dad still get married? Mel looked back at me for help. I tried to keep my face straight. Kids, since your father is leaving it up to me, I agree to the birthday party. She then looked at me. I also agree to the wedding. We will have it as a family celebration, but we won't ask our guests to bring you gifts. I was caught off guard. To be honest, I didn't think she'd agree to a family party. Mel was full of surprises, too. The kids were jumping up and down. They hugged Mel and then came over and hugged me. Epilogue. We had a month and a half to get everything done. I went back to work, so most of the planning fell on Mel's shoulders. Of course, Jen was there to help her. They became best friends. They were closer than most sisters. The girls rented a hall at the church, and since she was a member of her church, she had no trouble finding a church and a pastor for the weekend closest to Valentine's Day. Our color scheme was red and white and lots of hearts. Once again, the women from the church offered to cook dinner. We told them we wanted to pay for all the food and, of course, the cake. It was to be a small wedding with Jen as matron of honor and her husband Ralph as best man. We had 2 young attendants, 1 flower girl and 1 ring bearer. Guess for yourself who it was. I was wearing a beautiful suit and Mel looked like an angel in a blue dress. When the music started, tears streamed down my face. First down the aisle, staggering, was my son walking down the aisle with a ring attached to a cushion. He was followed by my daughter Andrea, wearing a blue dress the same color as Mel. She was followed by Renee, also wearing a blue dress. Ashley was next as the flower girl. The wedding march sounded and Mel was led down the aisle by her father. When she saw the tears in my eyes, I knew she was feeling the same emotions. I don't know why, but I was nervous. I had married the love of my life after years of turmoil with my first wife. When the priest said you may kiss the bride and I heard the applause, I realized the church was full of people. As I looked around the crowd, I saw so many old friends and family members. Until that moment, I had been completely focused on Mel. When we walked down the hall, there was a large poster that read, "Congratulations to the Connors family on their recent marriage." A second poster read, "Happy birthday to Renee, Ashley, and Andy Jr., and happy birthday to Andrea, who doesn't have a birthday until March." When the kids saw the banners, they were so happy. There was also a stack of birthday cards for each of them. When we sent out the invitations, we said it was a combined birthday and wedding celebration. It was the best Valentine's Day anyone could dream of. For the honeymoon, we decided to wait until June when the kids were out of school and take them all to Disney World. We shared rooms, the kids shared 2 double beds, and we got a twin bed. We played with the kids during the day and made love at night with the door closed. The kids couldn't understand why we were tired every morning. When we got home, Jen came in to see us and told us she was expecting her first baby. We were so happy for her and Ralph. We knew they had tried, and we were so happy that it had worked out. They had a son. Andy will now have a little buddy to accompany him for the next few years. We decided to sell my house and move into Mel's house. Both houses were big and old but well-maintained. It was better to get away from the stuff Trina had bought. We had an auction and sold most of the furnishings and, of course, the house. The kids were happy beyond belief. They all got new bedroom sets. The insurance checks came in and we put the kids' money, each into their own account, for their future. That was the last we heard of the accident. We read that Senator Conroy had been re-elected by a large margin. Apparently, a lot of sympathizers voted for him. It just goes to show that life can throw you a lot of curveballs, but every once in a while, if you hit it exactly right, you hit a home run. That's the way it was for us. I never checked on the kids, but I kept Zach's information in a safe. Maybe someday when I'm old enough, I'll get up the courage to do comparative tests. For now, it's enough for one of my kids to run to me, give me a big hug, and call me daddy to know that I made the right decision.